Well, good morning. We're working on the, I call it the BSA B50, even though it's badged as a Triumph. It's a 1974 Triumph that's badged, it's badged Triumph with a B50 BSA engine in it. We have done a lot of work on the bike, got the battery installed, and a nice hold down. It's solid as a rock. Coil is there, all the wiring I'll show you on the other side. We noticed that the kicker was awfully loose. We thought it was leaking because the seal was leaking, but then we found out that the kicker itself was really loose on the shaft. So we pulled this side apart and have done some cleaning, and we'll go over to the other side and I'll show you what we found over there. All right, first and foremost, at some point in its racing career, the bike threw the primary chain and wiped out all the vertical supports for the alternator. I ordered new stock ones and tried to put them in, but it couldn't make it happen because the casting was too uneven and the stock stator holders weren't tall enough. I have the funniest feeling that this aftermarket stator is thicker than the original. I don't know. I gave up. I made new standoffs using threaded rod and spacers and was able to get the alternator installed and get a good 10 to 15 thousandths clearance all the way around the rotor. So the stator is now in place, rotor in place, good clearance all the way around. Clutch is installed, all new clutch plates, and it's ready to go. We don't have the side covers. Well, let's talk about the electrical. This is the rectifier regulator. It takes the power from the alternator, converts it to DC power, and charges the battery, spare fuse. And the electronic ignition black box is located on the back side of this plate that I made. Everything's wired right down to a temporary ignition switch. I just made this little bracket, putting it on the back of that case bolt, and that will be the ignition switch until we get the side covers that the client has, and we'll see if we want to put the switch in the side covers or just leave it here, because this is a very nice little setup. That's ignition on, that's ignition off, and I carefully insulated the back side of the switch so there's no place to short out. It's completely sealed. All right, now on the other side, I said the kicker was feeling weird, and I'll show you why. Actually, in just a moment. Right now, let's go up here and let's turn on the ignition. Come up here to the light and show you that I have a toggle switch installed here that when I move it forward, that's high beam. When I move it back to the center, that's off. When I move it back, that's low beam. So high, low, and on, off is all controlled by one toggle switch. Kind of cool. On a simple dirt bike, that's more than adequate. Okay, let's go back over to the bench and I'll show you what we found over there. All right, over here, here's the rear fender that came off the bike. It's a little scrungy, needs some work done to clean it up. I'll cut all that away. And it's cracked here. I'm going to have it welded on the inside to put it back together and then seal it a little bit, maybe do cosmetic with a little bit of epoxy. This is not to be a pretty restoration. This is to put it back in race condition as it was back in 1974 when it was a race bike. So we're not trying to make it look pretty. This is a patina restoration. Here's the cover that was on the other side of the bike, the right side of the bike. Here's the hole that the Kickstarter gear goes through, and I thought that this seal here was leaking. That's why oil was leaking out. And I'll show you what we found in just a moment. And go. All right, this is the cover off the right side of the bike, and this is the hole for the Kickstarter gear to come through, like so. We thought this seal here was leaking. Turns out it is leaking, but it's not leaking because it's a bad seal. It's leaking because the hole is elongated that the Kickstarter gear goes through. And I mean, like, it rattles like a BB in a rain barrel. I'm not sure if there is a missing bushing from in here. I'll have to do some parts lookup. Either that or I'm going to have my machinist make a bushing to fit in there to hold this. Now, because of all this, take a look at the gear itself. I mean, it's really, really mangled. These teeth are just eroded. And we're going to replace this whole Kickstarter gear. Okay. Interesting thing while we're in here, this is the shifter. This fits like so, and pull, I said shifter, I'm sorry, the clutch release. And this works like so, and it turns this gear inside here. And what you do is you put this little, I'm going to call it a ramp gear, in here, drop it in, and it moves in and out to push the clutch release rod. It's just clever as heck. I really think that's cool. So that's where we are. We're going to have this built up one way or the other to accept a new clean Kickstarter gear that I will now order. And at this point in time, we're going to put the bike aside, and work on another bike. Okay.